Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Thanks for all of you coming. This is our second program of the season. Our third program by author Suzanne Schnittman. She's talked about women of Inlet. Tonight she's going to talk about the sons of the women of Inlet. And you're welcome to laugh, make remarks, ask questions.
What?
Suzanne? Okay.
That was quite an introduction. I don't think you're welcome to make remarks. I've been working on women in Inlet for almost 3 years now, and last year, a number of you gentlemen came up to me and said, "So what about the men? Is this on? It doesn't, yeah." I said, "I'd love to work with the men." So I've chosen 4 families and 4 to 5 sons, and some of them are in the audience. So if they don't mind, if they do mind, don't say you're there. Here, I know that Gordy Rudd is here. He can wave. Mike Beck is here. Greg Rudd is here.
No, he's not here.
Yes, he is.
Russ? Oh, the brothers! Wait, you guys can't fight till later. Here you go.
So it starts.
I don't see Russ Haynes. We were thinking maybe he'd be here, but I don't see.
Dave Haynes.
Dave! Oh, I'm so sorry I never met you. Hi. Well,
oldest.
Arthur David. Right, here's Arthur David Haynes. And we did not have the opportunity to have Dan Bird remain for a whole month. Just 2 weeks right on vacation. So welcome. So let me tell you a little bit about how we're going to do this. We're going to take 4 of the mothers, the women that I've been working on for a couple of years, and highlight them again, and then highlight their sons. So these are the 4. These are the partners. Then I'll do a brief biographical sketch of the moms and the sons, and I'll interject stories where I think they work, and then we'll go on and talk about what I think solidified all these guys for the most part, and then we'll talk about what inspired them from their moms, how they drove their moms crazy, and how they were convinced to stay connected to this wonderful community because of their moms. So these are the characters. So we have Letty Haynes, Letty Kirsch Haynes, and Russ Haynes, and older brother David is in the audience. We have Inez Rudd, not here. Gordy and Greg Rudd, who are both in the audience, and many of us know that we lost Gary quite a few years ago to illness. We have Jean in the audience, Jean Bird and her son Dan, I was happy enough to meet, and Sue and Mike Beck are both in the audience. I'm hearing feedback. Are you guys hearing feedback, or does this work? Marsha's nodding. Is it okay?
It's fine.
Okay. Let me know if you can hear. So we're going to start with Letty. Letty Haynes is someone that many of us are familiar with because of all the work she's done on the history. I promise you I'm not reading a PowerPoint, but I'm going to just glance at my notes, and when I find a common theme, I'm going to pop in, and one of them I think will really surprise you. None, except for Sue Beck, of the women I'm talking about were born in Inlet. But there's this magnet thing going on that some of you know about, right? I should mention that Letty's niece, Greta, do you want to wave, is in the audience as well. Anyone else? Well, okay. So Letty was born in Watertown, and her unique connection to Inlet is that her grandfather, who is Frank Tiffany, you know the name, the first supervisor of Inlet, he was here for many, many years before she came at all, and she barely knew him. He died when she was very, very little. She and her sisters, Eleanor and Marion is Greta's mother, spent most of their summers in Inlet, and they usually stayed at the marina when the Merricks owned the marina. Letty graduated from the University of Rochester as a social worker, and she went to Watertown to work, and that's where she met Arthur Haynes, the father of David. And in 1972, after raising 4 children, including Arthur, Jeff and Cynthia were twins, and Russ, mostly in Massachusetts, but other states, she decided to take advantage of the home that her grandfather had left her, which is another fascinating story, and come and live in Inlet. So Russ, I'm going to go back and forth with the sons, but right now I'll stick to Letty. So she comes with Russ and Arthur, but Arthur is still working in, I believe, was it Massachusetts? So he's only here on the weekends, and the house is in terrible shape, like really terrible shape.
Yeah,
So, what?
There's a lot of,
There's a lot of,
I think so.
Can
Maybe
you-
it depends on where you hold it.
okay. I also want to ask if both the air conditioners are on, because I know Charlie was thinking about turning them off. Are they both
Turn one
on?
off.
Would anyone like an air conditioner? Okay. I'll try to keep it like this and not. Is that better? Greg would like an air conditioner. You want to go turn it on, Greg?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I think you can. So the connection, which with all of the people we're talking about, besides living here, owning property, and loving Inlet, is the school. So the reason that Letty came and stayed in Inlet is because she had the opportunity to start her life all over again. It was 1972. She was born in 1926, and they offered her a job teaching school, first part-time, and then they wanted her to work more hours, and she decided to work full-time. So from 72 to 91, Letty taught at the Inlet Common School. A lot of you might be familiar with, she wrote the book about the history of Inlet, and then she wrote a book about the school. In 2002, her husband Arthur died. Another tragic theme among our women here is that they became widows at very young ages. Letty became a widow when Arthur was, I think, 65?
I think he was 73.
73, well, 73. Don Bird was 64. And Gordy Rudd was 65, correct? So in this day and age, that's a big thing. And so we have a huge theme of moms managing. All of these moms managed on their own. Well, Sue had Dave. But they managed to just create family, create their homes, and work constantly. Letty wasn't finished when she was done at school. She became the town's historian. She lived at 4 Neodeck, which is where you are now, and until shortly before she died. I'm trying to toss in quotes where I really think they fit, and I think one of the things, I was very lucky to meet Letty before she died. I met her in November and she died in February. Thanks to Debbie Haynes, she made that happen for me. I've always been drawn to the beauty of the Adirondacks and could not think of a more perfect place to spend my later years. So Russ, I'm not sure where this is from. I said send a picture. And pictures of guys and pictures of women are wonderful, because you say to the women, I'd like a picture. And they say, well, let me go on my web and I'll see where I look really good, and I have lipstick and my hair looks good, and I look thin and all the rest. And guys just say, here it is. Or I'm sitting right across from them, Gordy, Mike, Greg, that's the picture, and Dan. So I mean, guys are great. They're really fun. So Russ comes here as an 8th grader. So one of the first I don't know if any of you ever saw the house before anybody tried to live in it. And so it's, the address it's where Jeff lives now. So it's a big, lovely house, but it was a wreck and there was no water. And they came, I think they came, Russ was halfway through 7th grade from what I remember. Any of these details you can help me correct. But Russ was here on his own with his mom. And they had to figure out how to use water in the winter and in the summer. And that was just one of the many, many, many challenges for an 8th grader who also had to go to school. Like Inlet School is wonderful, but then he had to go to Old Forge, which has its own challenges. But he gave me a lot of insight to his mom, which I don't think a lot of us see, that she was lonely. She didn't know people in Inlet. She was here when she was a little girl. She had been away from all of her professional life. She had raised 4 children, mostly without all of you helping her out. So here she was with an 8th grader. Now, Russ was kind of an unusual kid because he loved reading and he loved really entertaining himself, and he didn't seem extremely demanding toward her, and very, very helpful. And the two of them bonded on their love of animals, which I'm going to come back to a lot. But one of my Russ, you don't need to read that, but I don't know why it's so light. So Russ, I'm almost sure was born in Freeport. You're going to help me out here, no?
No, he wasn't born in Freeport. He was born in, I'm texting my number here.
Okay, well, not Inlet.
I was born in Watertown. Cynthia and Jeff were born in Syracuse, and Russ was I think in Syracuse as well.
He was in school in Freeport, and they were in a very, very poor school district.
In 68, we went to Maine. My father got transferred there.
And they were in Maine. And the story that Letty had told me much earlier is that he was on a school bus, and the bus broke down. And kids, full of kids, and the driver said, well, gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm going to go to one of these houses and try to get help, and I don't know how to use a telephone. Does anyone on the bus know how to use a telephone? And it was Russ Haynes who knew how to use a telephone, which is just a darling story, I think. So when he came here, there were the challenges at the Tiffany House. He took the bus with 4 other kids to Town of Webb schools, and I think we could write a whole book just on those bus rides. The bus drivers, as we know, the Paynes and Barb Murdoch, they were wonderful. They were mothering our kids, your kids. But Russ seems to have made it pretty well. He said he made friends and he did well at the Town of Webb. He graduated from SUNY Geneseo. He was an English major, and then he taught English for 34 years. Married to Deborah Haynes. Many of you may see her down in town. She was, I think she worked as a scientist, but she taught. Teacher, right. So they have a house in Utica, and then they had the good luck of getting property right on 4th Lake at a pretty good rate, or a pretty good price, and then they built their own house, a dream house like a number of you have done. So I'm going to tell one story. I told you about the water already, how difficult it was. Well, there were bats in the house, and Letty, who does not hurt or touch any animal to harm it in any way, shape, or form. So what Letty did, instead of getting a tennis racket like many of us do to hit the bat or flush them down the toilet or whatever, she made a special opening in the roof. Her husband did it. So the bats could come in and out and not being hurt. And this was something that this was one of the lessons that Russ learned from his mother. I have a handful of photos here. This is Letty working at the Historical Society, which she did almost way up to the end. This is the newsletter. I put this in because I'm not good technically, but I wanted Russ and Letty together. It's recent. And I'm going to go on to Inez Rudd. The reason I was able to get so much information about Inez is that after my talk last year, Gordy came up to me and said, my mom recorded a video long before she died, and would you like to see it? And I said, well, sure, but that was August, and I think I called you in February, so it took a while. But so we sat down, and I tried to learn without meeting Inez, the character that she brought to this family and to us and to her kids. She had 3 sons, and her life in the video is, I would say, 3/4 of the video is her home in the Masonic lodge, the Masons in Utica. So she was born in Thendera. I mean, I said she wasn't born in Inlet, but she was born in Thendera, you know, in the outskirts of but when she was 3, her mom died. There were five of her siblings, and she were raised in the Masonic home in Utica. The praise, and it was the Depression. Look at the years. 1925 and 1928. Her mom dies, and she goes to the Masons to raise her. She was with a couple sisters. The boys and girls were divided. I don't have a lot here because this about that experience. When I finally get my book written about all these women, a lot of that will be in it because the stories of that experience. She was so loved by that group, and she was so grateful. In the Depression, she said she had more to eat, and she had better clothes than almost anybody else that she ever encountered. Her great thrill was going to camp. Every year they went to camp in the Adirondacks. And she was with her sister always. Never was a boy allowed to see her, for example, in a bathing suit. So they would go to camp, and the girls would swim, and then they would all get out of the pool, put on a bathrobe. Do any of you have granddaughters in town? I know, yeah. 16-year-olds. Anyway, the girls would get out of the pool, put on a bathrobe, walk into the locker room. Then the boys would come out, and they would get in the pool. She had never spent a night under the roof of a boy that was related to her or not. So the way the family went, her father was doing different jobs, and he was now living at Racket Lake. When she was 16, it was her turn to come home and live with him. So she and her sister came home to Racket Lake, and they lived, and she went to Racket Lake High School. So she had a little bit different of an experience than some of the other women. Imagine her background. So she goes to Syracuse University, becomes a nurse, works in Mohawk Valley, and Gordy Rudd, Gordy number 1, I think it's Gordy number 1, has an accident, from what I understand, on a milk delivery truck? Yes. Very, very serious, that he tore his leg to shreds. Goes to Mohawk and spends at least 6 months there, and they get to be very good friends, even though they had kind of rubbed elbows and racket. But Gordy was from out of town, so he didn't know her. So they marry. They come to Inlet. His parents own the Red and White grocery store. And in 1956, they decide to buy the store from her parents. So I'm going to show you. I don't have a great shot, but I want you to. Oh, I'm going to go forward because I want you to think about the Red and White. Okay, now this family's got a grocery store down below. Okay, first floor. Part of the grocery store is their kitchen. So, little door between the grocery store. People come in and say, "Hey, who's home? I'm grabbing potatoes." Right in the kitchen. Second floor, you got 4 bedrooms. You got 3 boys, by the way. Calm, gentle, hanging out, reading like Russ Haynes, just sitting in the corner reading. So they lived there until 1991. Now we're talking, this is 1956. You can do all that math in your head. But you got 3 boys in a row, and they are living in this upstairs at the grocery store and working their tails off in many, many ways. Getting up at the crack of dawn, going to pick up produce out of town. Oh, by the way, they're also selling propane. And I mean, everybody doesn't just have one job here. So if I miss a job, it's not like missing a grandchild, but there's lots and lots of jobs. The Rudds had lots and lots of jobs. I'm going to come back to both of the boys in a minute. But and keep that in mind, because I don't know who's in front, but it's too old to be one of you guys, I'm sure. I mean, is it? Okay. This is Petals and Petals now. So when I talk to you about what they were throwing out of the window, and it's right on the channel there, you can sort of get an image of that too. Oh, these are the boys. Greg, Gordy, and as I mentioned, middle boy Gary.
I'm the good looking one.
Also the shy one, right. There's Greg and Tony. And there's Gordy at the doing his duties for the Legion, because he's very active in the Legion. But I'm going to come back and talk with you just about Gordy for a few minutes. See, now, he really spiffed up for this picture. I mean, that's why I love that. I mean, he's just, I said, do you want to take your glass? No, I don't need you to take my glasses off. Do you want to put your glasses on your eyes? Nah, I look fine. Okay, good. And I think, may I embarrass you? Yeah, you're still growing the hair. Yeah, okay.
I wish I could grow hair.
So, oops, that's the little brother. Gordy was born in Inlet. He attended the Inlet School and also the Town of Webb High School. Again, living with the family above the red and white grocery store. And I mentioned all the working. He attended, then he left college, and this is wrong. He said he didn't go to Vietnam, but in '73 you enlisted.
Well, yeah, 72 actually.
72, okay. Which is probably why he's in the American Legion. He married Joanne Manili, and they live on Gilbert Road in Inlet, and I think they share 6 grandchildren from what I've heard. He's very active in the Legion, he's very active in the fire department. So the story I chose about Gordy is the horseplay story, is that his mom, standing either at the foot of the stairs or at the top of the stairs, screaming, "Gordy, Greg, Gary, one of you guys with a G, get up here." I could have gotten that wrong, but you get the flavor, right? Another one I believe is Gordy Sr. holding one of the boys up by the ankle, quite irate at the boy, and Inez saying, "Don't, you'll kill him, you'll kill him, you'll kill him. He'll be fine." And that was the end of that story. Now, Greg also primed for the picture. I hope you guys don't mind, because I just love these pictures. I just love them. Okay. Are you born in 71 or earlier or later?
I was born in '58.
Okay, got that off a little bit. So he also lived over the Redmore until he graduated from college. He went to Town of Webb High School and also Inlet High School. He graduated as an art major from SUNY Potsdam, and then he taught art for 31 years. He married Tony Rudd. I don't know the year you opened the pottery studio. Many of you maybe have seen Gary's studio, Greg's studio. You
I've
don't
been
know.
doing it for 40 years.
Okay, so and
We should go in.
don't forget to go to the craft show and buy stuff from Greg this weekend. He doesn't live on Route 28. He lives on Lime Kiln Road and also has 4 cottages that they invested in. So I'm switching Greg's story from the father holding the kids, because Gordy told me a story that I think Greg was involved in. It has something to do with glass, water, and guns. And Sunday afternoons, there were a lot of empties in the grocery store. And Gordy Sr. would say to the boys, why don't you guys take boxes full of those empties over down near Sixth Lake, I think, so you throw them into the water and they'll wind their way through the channel, and then when they get there, you can stand on our balcony, you saw the balcony, you know, like Petals and Petals balcony, and you can shoot them with the .22. And that's why the Rudd family does not go barefoot into the channel. We'll come back to Greg's, because he did some very interesting. There they are again. Jean Bird. So, Jean is well known to many of you. Jean was also not born here. She was born as a twin to Joan in Long Island, Smithtown, Long Island. Jean graduated from SUNY Potsdam also. And she, you got your master's in Connecticut, is that what happened? University of Connecticut. So, Don Bird happened to be up at Clarkson, where you'll find out that Dan also went to college, and Doug also went to college. So Jean and Don met at Potsdam. She went with him to Connecticut, where he was had a job as a very secret type engineer. Experimental test engineer. But he'd always loved flying. They had 2 sons while they were in Connecticut, and then they moved. All the time they were back and forth to Inlet. Winter, summer, it didn't matter, because Buster and Laura Bird, many of you know those names. You know the cottage, Laura's cottage, is right on Route 28 to the left of Jean's house. And Laura tragically died when she was 57, before they even moved here. But Jean and Laura were very close. I have a picture of Laura with the little boys. So she had, as I said, 2 sons, Doug and Dan, and they owned and operated the North Country Liquor. And I don't know if you did the Osprey boat, but you had that on your mailbox or your post.
That was before my time.
Before your time, okay. So the theme here is, how many jobs can somebody do at the same time? So the job that fascinated me most was about the liquor store, along with being the principal of the school, and along with teaching 5th and 6th grade boys, and along with inspiring everybody to become cross-country skiers. Plus, I think you probably at least had 1 dog.
At least.
They also, another theme, that families were very entrepreneurial in a lot of different ways. And a lot of families, including the Rudds and the Birds, bought lots of small pieces of property, which evidently were not outrageously expensive in the 70s and the 80s. And they made very good choices about property, and they made very, very good choices about not spending money unless they had the money. When Jean was working, she did not retire until her home equity loan was paid. In an early quote, she said to me, "I don't believe we need to keep up with the Joneses." I think I might even have had it here. So Don and Jean had a trailer they had on a property right across where they are now on Route 28. And Dan remembers getting the bus or walking down to the Inlet School, because the buses were going, really, it seems like they were going by all the time. But they, Jean, along with teaching, because when she came back, she started teaching pretty soon. Don died 9 years after they built their dream home. Many of you have seen their dream home, at least from the outside. And Jean has been the kind of woman that keeps it up and keeps her dream alive, and is pretty gutsy about the whole situation. I'm quoting her 2 things that I love. She said, "I love to bring people to my home to share the beauty of our surroundings." And I think that she has instilled this in her grandchildren and in her children and in all of us, actually. In towns like Inlet, men couldn't do it alone. And I'm going to pause here for a minute because I started this old project and I thought, how did the women build up the town? Women are so resilient. Women are so strong. How did they build this town? And first off, in Old Forge, someone said to me, it didn't work like that in the Adirondacks. Men and women did it together, period. And Jean said, men and women did it together. We're not fighting over who's picking up the propane. We're not fighting over who's answering the door because someone wants to buy potatoes. We're not fighting over even who's giving somebody a bath. I mean, it was just, I've heard it again and again and again. And it is a tribute to this community. It's a tribute to the area. It's a tribute to all of us. And I think it's a great lesson. I mean, there's no gender divisions. I mean, I'm sure there are, but I mean, it's something that Jean said from the very beginning. And of course, she wants to make a difference, and she's involved in many, many community activities as well. Here's Jean and Don in the 90s. So, of course, you know that Don had this plane service that he started, and that the children chose not to carry on. And I want to say just for a moment, the children, again, 3 years ago when I did my first talk, and one of the people in the group came up to me and said, gee, too bad you're not doing men, because we got so many sons. We got so many sons at Inlet, and I'm sort of partial to sons because I have them, and they're great. They're a lot easier than daughters, I think. But so I didn't get on board with the sons for a while because I didn't get it, and I'm beginning to just repeat myself. But anyway, this is the boys in this family chose, and Jean, correct me if I'm wrong, not really to carry on the seaplane business. Dan said to me, he got seasick in a plane after 15 minutes, which is not good if this is your business. Not good at all. So, this is Doug on the left, little Dan in the middle, and Grandma Laura. That's in Buster's. Is it the other way around?
There's the bigger one and Doug's the little one.
Yeah, I heard Doug was the troublemaker, but that's just what his brother said. Doug was the troublemaker, the one out on Route 28 causing trouble. And Dan is the tall one. And this is Grandma Laura, and I'm not sure what year it would be, but this was in they lost their grandma early, they lost their dad early, and again, what is it called? Resiliency. Here's Dan, again, looking natural. And Dan was born to Jean and Don in Manchester, Connecticut, Collins, and one of the nearby towns. Brother Doug, 2 years younger, the troublemaker. But I think brothers like to say that their brother is the troublemaker. They, again,